Okay, so for exercise 3, if you look at the questions, you've got something x squared and a number. So this is your constant. Okay, that's the c. So c here is -4. The a value is -3, and so on. So we had that form before. So that was the form y equals ax squared plus b. And they could be plus or minus. So remember now, let's just review a bit. If a is a positive number, so if a is positive, the graph will open upwards. Okay, that depends on a. If it's positive, it will open up. If it opens down, the a value will be negative. So that's open downwards. Okay, open downwards. So that will change your shape up or down. And if it's, if a was like minus a tenth, so if a was a tenth, you would get a very shallow graph if it's a small number. But if it was a equals 10 or a larger number, it will be more narrow. So that could be, say, a equals 5, for example, and the opposite underneath as well. That's just a review about a. Now, you may remember about b, that will move your graph up or down. So b shifts the graph up or down. Okay, so for example, if we had y equals x squared, so that graph is just drawn in here as normal. So that one is always there through the origin, there's 0.00. If you had x squared minus 2, that will shift down 2 units. So that would go down 1, 2. Now the vertex would be here, like that. So that would go down to -2 here. And if it's +2, it will go up, or say +5. So if you had y equals x squared plus 5, it will go up 5 units. Like that. Okay, so up 5 unit, down 2 unit, for example. So that will just move the graph up or down. So we're not moving left to right in this lesson, this section, only up or down. So I'll help you with question 1. So let's think about what this looks like. Okay, so see your a here is negative. So the first thing to look at the a value. Now, if that's negative, it will open downwards. It will go this way, like that. So you tick that box there. Okay, and all of these graphs are on the x equals 0 axis of symmetry. I'll draw it in a minute. Well, let's draw it now. So let's look at the graph. So notice your c value is -4. So that's actually your y-intercept. So we come down 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go down to 3, 4, -4. Now this is negative, which means your graph opens downwards. So it goes this way, like that, through the point -4. So let's move that. So that point there is 0, -4. That's your vertex. Okay. So this will just go up or down on the y-axis, these questions. So the axis of symmetry, you can see is here. That's this line here. All right, that's the blue line. There, x equals 0. So you should label that. You don't have to draw these when you fill the table in. I'm just explaining what's happening. So it looks like now we have a maximum. This is a maximum value, a high point. So this is a max value, about maximum. Just call it a max. And the maximum value is -4 here. So that would be here. So we can say y equals -4 or just -4. Like that. So y equals -4. And the turning point is this number here. So that's 0 - 4, which is a maximum. So 0 - 4. There's no minimum there. So they're blank. Sorry, I put that in the wrong box. It's a maximum. So y equals -4. Okay, like that. And it's open downwards. Okay, so that's the answer for the first one. So you think about this second one here. Okay, you don't have to put anything in the chat. I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Just try question 2 first. Okay, do that one yourself for a minute. And we'll review in a minute. So look at the A value, and then you'll know if it's going up or down. These graphs are all on the y-axis. They're not left or right yet. That was what we did yesterday. So that's a different section. If you do question 2, you can try question 3. I'll go through 2 in a minute. So I'll rub this picture out so we can make space for another one. Guess I can do that. Okay, for question 2, you can look at the last number, which is -9. So that's going to give you your y-intercept, which is way down here. -9, that's this point here. And 2 is positive. So the graph will open upwards. So then we just draw it something like that. Okay, so that's basically what that looks like. So your axis of symmetry is not going to change. That's just that line there. So all of these graphs, the vertex will be on the y-axis. So you don't have to worry too much about that. So it's opening upwards, this graph, because this is positive. So it's going that way. X equals 0 is your line of symmetry. Now this is a minimum value. This is a min because it's a low point. So the minimum here is going to be y equals -9, but it's a minimum. So that goes in there. And it's a minimum point, which is 0. So that vertex is 0 - 9. So the x value is 0 and then -9. So 0 - 9 for the turning point or vertex. Right, like that one. Okay, so question 3, you don't need the graphs. I'm just showing you what's going on. So let's look at the next one. We'll do something a bit harder in a minute. We do that. Make a new graph. No, not that one. Double. Okay. So in question 3, 2. So this graph is going to move up 2 places from the origin. So it's going to go up 1, 2 here. That's this number here. This A value is negative. So the graph opens downwards. So just draw your graph downwards through that vertex there, like that. Hopefully your graph's better than mine. Okay, so we can see that it opens downwards because of the negative A value. The line of symmetry is still x equals 0. That's not changed. Now this is a maximum point, isn't it? It's a high point. So the maximum point here is y equals 2 for this one. So the maximum is y equals 2. And the maximum turning point, the turning point is 0, 2. So that will go here, like that for that one. Okay, you try question 4 yourself for a minute. I'll give you a minute to do that. So do 4 and 5 the same way. But the axis of symmetry is the same for every question. We're not going left or right in this question, just up or down. So I might ask you a few questions at the end in the chat. So, all right, question 4. If you like to graph, it's a good idea to graph everyone actually, just sketch it out. And that will help you visualize what's going on. So we can see C is 7, and that's the y-intercept. So this last number is always the y-intercept. So we go up to 7, up here, and this is positive 6. So it's kind of narrow, but it's going upwards. So it's opening up because the A value is positive, 6 is positive. So we open upwards this way, like that. And that's 7 in there. Put that in better. So this point here, this is the vertex, which is 0, 7. That's this point here. So if we look here, we're opening upwards. And the axis of symmetry is still x equals 0. Your minimum value is 7. So now we have a low point. So this is a minimum. So that would be y equals 7 as a minimum, like that. Your turning point is 0, 7, and that's also a minimum, of course. So 0, 7, like that. Okay, last one. Same idea. Look at 4 and 5, except this is going to be below the axis. So I'll just put it on here. So minus 3/4, I'll use a different pen. So minus 3/4, well, that's minus 1. So minus 3/4 is here somewhere. And this is positive, so it's going to open up like that. So that's minus 3/4. So this is 0, minus 3/4. Okay, that number there. And we're opening up because half is positive. So we open upwards, x equals 0, line of symmetry here. Your minimum value, because it's a low point, so y equals minus 3/4. And the turning point is 0, minus 3/4 as a minimum. like that. So I'll leave that there a minute for you to copy. But I think it's a good idea to graph when you're doing these. And notice the form for this question is y equals ax squared plus b. Actually, we normally call that c, don't we, when we do our equation? So let's call that c rather than b. Because normally we use b with x, don't we, bx? So let's call that c. Okay, so c is your y-intercept in these questions. Actually, in every question, that c is the y-intercept. So that's the y-intercept. So that's where your graph touches the y-axis, which is here. And in this case, that's the vertex in every case, all right? So we might graph this one. So I'll give you a minute. So for question 2, if you're just working in a notebook, just make a table. And remember, be careful with these numbers here. So if you're doing -4, you're going to have y equals 4 minus -4 squared. Okay, we'll graph this one fairly quickly. I don't want to spend too long on it. So that's going to give you 4 minus -4 times -4 is 16. So that will give you -12 for that one. Okay, you fill in the table, and then I'll give you a couple of minutes. You draw the graph out. Just sketch it out if you want, if you don't have a tablet. If you have a tablet, you can try and do it properly. But if you're just on a notebook or your textbook, you can just do it fairly quickly, all right? Don't spend too long on this. I'll give you a couple of minutes, fill in the table, then I'll write some numbers in. Okay, we can put some numbers in, see what we got here. So this is going to be 4 minus -3 squared, 4 minus 9, that's -5. 4 minus -2 squared, 4 minus -2 squared is 4, 4 minus 4 is 0. I'm going to rub these out in a minute. So 4 minus -1 squared, 4 minus 1, which is 3. And then, let's see, that's okay. 4 minus 0 squared, that's 4. 4 minus 1 squared, that's going to be 3. 4 minus 2 squared is 4, which is 0. 4 minus 3 squared is 9, that's minus 5. And that's going to be minus 12, the last one. So you can see that looks symmetrical, right? So when you fill in a table, you should just check things are symmetrical. So you've got a 4 here, but then you have 3, 3. And then you've got 0, 0. And then you've got minus 5, minus 5. And then you've got minus 12, minus 12. So it looks like this is probably correct because of this symmetry here around x equals 0. So when you're doing your graph, let's do a quick graph. I'll make that a bit smaller so we can see what's going on. So look at your numbers. So we're going from 4 down to minus 12. So at this case, I think we want to have the axis near the top. So we'll do it about here. Not with that. We'll use a pen. So near the top somewhere about there. So I'll make that the x-axis. Let's call that the x-axis. And the y-axis, it needs to go down to minus 12. So we'll go in the middle and then we'll go down to the bottom from there. So in the middle somewhere. So go down. We don't have to go too far. So I went all the way. So let's call that y, like that. So the scale's up to you. We go out to 4. So if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, let's spread it out a little bit, might be better. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 there, and then minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. So you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 using the small box. You can spread it out a bit. Minus 2 makes the graph look a bit better. And then we've got to go down to minus 12. So then we should think probably we can't use double. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think that would be too far. So we're going to have to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So down to minus 12 here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So I had to change the scale, but you can do that. You can spread the scale out in the x-axis, and the y-axis, if you have big numbers, then you can make them smaller. Okay, so the scale doesn't have to be the same when we're just doing a graph like this. So we've got 4 minus 12. So let's start here. So you go across minus 4, minus 12 here, minus 3, minus 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, minus 2, 0 there, minus 1, 3, 0, 4, and then that will be symmetrical on the other side. So 1, 3, 2, 0, 3 minus 5 there, and 4 minus 12, which is that one there. So that would give you your parabola. Okay, I'm going to sketch it out. So you can draw that in your book real quick. I don't want to spend days doing this because I don't have time. So then come down. Don't use a ruler to join the point. They have to be curves. Something like that. Okay, so if we look at our graph, you can see this is your line of symmetry, obviously down through the vertex. So that is x equals 0. That's the line of symmetry. we've got a maximum point now. So the maximum value is 4, and that vertex is 0, 4. That's the vertex. And what else? So yeah, so the maximum value is y equals 4. Okay, so that's just some extra information. I'm sure you're okay with that. You just got to be careful with these numbers. If you don't get a smooth curve like this, it may be one of your points is wrong. So you may go up and then start to go down, and then this point, you may have marked it up here somewhere and not here. So you know there's something wrong. If you go down and then go back up again, you can't do that. That won't happen for parabolas. Okay, so you should get a nice smooth curve like that through each point. If you don't, you need to double check your values in the equation. Don't worry about this one. That will move on. Now, these are a bit interesting. So look at question 4. Now, this is the kind of question that's a little bit more difficult. Okay, we want to write the functions from these graphs. Now, if we look at them, the vertex is all on the y-intercept, on the y-axis. So each question is in the form y equals ax squared plus c. I'll put c for that value. So for the first one, I'll help you a little bit. We want to write the equation of this graph here. Okay, so look at the a. This a value is going to be negative, isn't it? So a will be negative. So we know that first. A is negative because the graph opens downwards. Because the graph goes that way. So we know a is negative. The c value is your y-intercept here. So we know this value actually is going to be 1, this number here. So what we can do, we could already write y equals ax squared plus 1. It would be this number here. This one doesn't have it, so we got to think what we're going to do here. So this is 1. So we can write that already. We know this value will be 1. Okay, because we're just following what we did in the previous section. But how do you get a? We know a is negative. Okay, what do you think? Does anyone have any idea? You can put in the chat box if you want. How do you think you'll find a? Because if we look at our graph, what other points do we know? We know this point is on the graph and this point here also. That point is 1, 0. So x is 1 and y is 0. And this point is -1, 0. We know this point as well. Okay, so we've got some information. What I'll do, I'll use this one here, this number here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take that number and call that x and y. And I'm going to put these numbers back into this equation here. I'm able to do that because this point is on the line, which means I can substitute back to the equation. So in this case, y is 0, x is 1. So 1 squared plus 1. Okay, so now I can find a. So 0 is 1 squared is 1. 1 times a is a plus 1. So a must be -1. And that's what we suspected. It's upside down. It may not have been -1. It could have been -2 or some other number that's negative. So a is -1. So I took this point and I substituted. So you should write this down because you may see this again later. Definitely in grade 10, you're going to see these. So substitute. So sub point on the graph, which is this 1, 0 on the graph, into the equation. So this will be hard for some of you, but you just have a go and see if you can do it. If not, you can wait for me. I might give you some time to do question 2, and maybe you can send me a message for that one if you think you know how to get this equation here. So our final equation was minus x squared plus 1. So that's the final answer there. So A was -1, and B, and the C value is this number here, 1. So that went there. Yeah, it's a bit tough, but you see if you can do it. That's the first one. All right. Now, just to help you out, this graph has, we don't know this point here. Okay, we don't know the vertex, but we know this point is on the graph and A is positive. So this is 2, 4. Right, I'll give you a few minutes. Why don't you think about how you're going to do this one? How would you get the equation? And it's in the form y equals ax squared plus c. Okay, why don't you try that one for a minute and see if you can get an answer. Or you can wait for me if you're not sure. If you think you've got an answer, you can write the equation into the chat box. But I won't score you for this one because it's quite hard. So if you think you know, you can let me know, but I won't include that for the participation. I think this question was missing the information. I'm just looking at the answer key, but I got a feeling this should be written as 2 here. I think this needs to have a number because we don't have enough information. So call that 2. Okay, that's the point 2. Otherwise, we can't do it. I think the book is missing that number for this question. All right. All right, try that. If you can get an answer, let me know, and I'll. Anyone get an answer? You can put in the chat box. So A is positive, isn't it? This graph is going up. And we know C from the graph because I just wrote the number wrong. Okay, for this question, so C, that C is our y-intercept, which is this number here. And we did need it. The book is missing that number. So if you have a textbook, that should be 2. I had to work it out myself last year, but yeah, I just noticed it's a number missing from the picture. So we could write y equals ax squared plus 2, okay, which is your y-intercept. And we can use this point as xy. We take a point on the graph and then we sub back to the equation. So in this case, y is 4 and a is 2. A will be a and x is 2. 2 squared plus 2. So you should have something like that. So we put the x and y back into the original equation. So we're going to have 4 equals 4a plus 2. So 4a equals 2. A will be a half. Okay, so a is not always 1. A could be any number. So a is a half. And c is 2. So our general form then, our equation would be a half x plus 2, like that. Half x squared. Okay, half x squared plus 2 for that one. So you can take some notes there if you want, because I think you're going to come across these again later on. And this is the kind of question you would get in an exam, a test, a kind of a test question, because you're trying to interpret about the graphs. All right, got that? Okay, what about this one? You want to try yourself first? So write your general form. Y equals ax squared plus c. That's the form we're using for this set. So you've got your y-intercept here, which is 15. And we can use either of these points to get the a value. So this is, use this one here. So 0, 10, 0. That's x, y. And put that back into the equation and you can find a. Right, try that one for a minute. We only have 10 minutes, so I think we'll just work through these ones here. Can anyone write the answer? You can put in the chat box if you like. A is negative, isn't it? Because the graph is opening downwards. Can anyone do it? You can put an answer for me. So you've got C, that's your y-intercept, which is here. So we know C is 15. So you can write y equals ax squared plus 15, whatever this number is here, the intercept. And we can use x and y as 10, 0. So x is 10, y is 0. So let x equals 10, y equals 0. So we put them into the equation. So you have 0 equals a 10 squared plus 15. Okay, so we need to rearrange this. So you're going to get 100a equals minus 15. So a will be minus 15 on 100. And if you simplify that, you get minus 3 on 20. That's a. So now you've got a fraction for a and it's negative. We knew it would be negative because it's because of the shape of the graph. So our equation would be y equals minus 3 on 20 x squared plus 15. Well, we've got to chat. Let's see if you got the right answer. Plus 15. Yeah, minus 0.15. That's the a value, yeah. So some of you got me the a value. And at the end, you can write the final equation. Okay, so in the chat box, the students were writing this number, which is fine, but you want to give me the whole equation. So for the next question, can you try this one? So we have C, and we also have a point. Okay, choose that one there. It doesn't matter which one you use, so both will work. So this is the point 10 minus 15. Okay, and this is the point -5. So write your general form. AX squared plus C. Okay, so if you think you get the equation, write it in here. You can put in the chat box now. Okay, I'm not going to score this one because I don't think it's that easy. But for the basic thing, we'll do some more next week for some participation points. Okay, try that one. Put your equation into the chat box if you think you know it. I'll give you a couple of minutes. And then there's one more, question 5, you can do as well. Question 5, you can try. So anyone got the answer? So do that for a couple of minutes. We could have called that C value K as well. Okay, we got one answer. Are you sure it's 10x squared? Maybe check your A value again. Right. So the A value should be -1/10. So some of you look like you're okay. So keep doing it. I'll give you another minute. But if you're really not sure, you can just copy down the solution, because I think it's like hard for some students. And notice the graph opens downwards. So your A value should be negative, shouldn't it? So this should be negative. So check your sign if you got a positive A. Shall we have a look? All right, some of you give me answers. So let's take a look here. You've got y equals ax squared. In this case, the c is -5. That's your y-intercept. So -5. So that's our form. But now we need to find a. And to find a, we need to have something to put to x and y. So we'll use these values here that are on the graph. The points you put in must be on the graph. So you can use this one, or you can use this one. And if you use this one, you'll get the same answer. It doesn't matter. So then you're going to get -15 equals a 10 squared minus 5. So minus 15 plus 5 is minus 10 equals A 100. So A must be minus 10 on 100, which is minus 1/10, like that. So some of you, I think, missed the negative sign. So how did you miss that? Okay, so that's negative 1/10. And we know that must be probably correct because we can see the graph is upside down. And that means we must have a minus sign here. So we have minus 1/10 x squared minus 5 for the y-intercept. So you should get that equation there. So if you're copying that, you should copy that now into your book or onto your tablet, whatever you're using. If you got an answer for question 5, why don't you take a look at 5? Okay, I'll go down. So if you're writing that, write it down real quick. Okay, go to 5. How about this one? So again, your general form is y equals ax squared plus c. C is down here, this number here. And you can pick, say, this point here, which is 6, 0, that point there. That can be your xy point. And then you substitute and you write your equation. Every question's done the same way. And we'll do some more of these next week as well. Well, our time's up, so let's look at this one real quick. So C is minus 12. So we have y equals ax squared minus 12 for the y-intercept. We will use the point 6, 0 in here. So we'll have 0 equals a 6 squared minus 12. 0 is 36a minus 12. So we'll have 36a equals 12. A is 12 on 36. So A is 1/3. So A is 1/3, okay? So then we're going to get y equals 1/3 x squared minus 12 for the final answer. Okay, did anyone get that? 1/3 x squared, yeah. All right, so we had someone get it right. So it's just a little bit tricky. You just have to use your standard form. So we use this form whenever we have a graph that's on the y-axis like that. Okay, so any graph like that will have this form here, where A is either positive or A could be negative down here. So this is the form we use when we have this kind of graph. So next week, when we have, say, this graph, HK, we'll do it a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. Okay, so this kind of graph will have this form here. Okay, I think we'll stop there because the time's up already. And I'll record it and I'll post a video on it later anyway, just in case we do any more on this. All right, so I'll see you next week then, all right? Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.